Hi. This video is, I want to just preface this by saying there is a trigger warning here about sexual assault. So, um, Something that over the past few years has come up is the whole Me Too movement. And it's something that I didn't know fully how to speak on before. Um, and Not that you need to speak on anything if you don't feel to, but it is something that over the last couple years, something has popped up in my life that I've been dealing with that um, I have not expressed. And as many people know, I'm very open with my expression of a lot of the events that have gone on in my life, the traumatic events, the not so traumatic events. And so to have something that I've held closer to my chest over the past couple years has been a very deliberate choice, and one that I think is time that I talk about. And I think that is also potentially important for any of my followers to hear. Um, so I'll start with um, just when this came up for me, and forgive me if I'm struggling through the expression of this. Is the first time that I'm attempting to talk about it. Um, and even though I'm just recording this on video right now, it is with the intention to share it publicly. So I do know that, yeah, nerves, nerves coming up, but uh, I feel empowered in my sharing of this. So I'm forging ahead. So in 2019, I had just a really difficult year. I struggled through that year, as I know a lot of people did. I had a couple deaths in my family, um, which was heartbreaking and depressing to deal with. Um, Mix that with a a partnership that I was also struggling through. I knew that I needed to probably not be in it anymore. Um, but there were a lot of redeeming qualities about it that kept me there. I was learning how to assert myself and really, be somebody who was speaking what their needs were, but I also didn't have enough practice at the time to take action and to just like fully have that be embodied in my life. So that added to the depressed feeling that I was experiencing, along with the losses that were happening, and just like a really sort of disconnected feeling relationship. Um, and um, in November of 2019, I received a message, uh, not a not a spiritual message or anything. Maybe it was a spiritual message, but it was a Facebook message from a man in my past, from my past, and the message essentially said that he had been struggling with relationships for the past 10 years or so. And there was a lot of guilt that he'd been carrying around, and he didn't really know why. And he wanted to work through that. And so he went on, he did an ayahuasca journey. Um, I myself have never done ayahuasca, but I know that it can really bring up a lot of stored memory for people. Or, I've heard it's been like 10 years of therapy and into like a weekend or something. I don't know. But he said he did an ayahuasca journey, and that what came up for him was visions of me. And he said that throughout his journey, he recalled um, the last time that we had seen each other, and that we were being sexual together, and that I had not consented to the sex, and that I had made it clear that I didn't want it and that I said no, but that he didn't listen. And that, what else did he say? He said that um, he was going through a lot at the time, and understanding his own ego, and was not something that he had done at all. And he was acting out from a place of whatever he was going through at the time. And he said that I didn't deserve that, and that he's sorry, and that he hopes that I'm doing well. And then he pressed send, and that's all I got. That's the message that I got. So at the end of this year of feeling extreme depression and loss, and really struggling to find my way, while I'm supporting people in my work, and coaching people through their own experiences, I get this sort of dropped down onto my lap. um, and I didn't know how I was going to deal with that information. It was like the last thing that I would have ever hoped for, or needed, or wanted. It was re-traumatizing all over again. Because before I received that message, I had no recollection of that night. And in fact, whenever I would see this person pop up on my social media, I only thought of experiences that I had shared with that person prior to that night. I had no recollection. I had completely blocked it out of my memory. Um, so when I was given this news, um, all of that memory just started seeping into my awareness, and I was flooded with so much shame, so much shame, so much guilt. Um, just the it was so much more than I could really take. And in that re-traumatizing of that experience, I began to scroll through social media. I didn't tell anybody about this. I didn't tell anybody about this except for my partner at the time. I remember going upstairs and telling him, I just received this message and I don't know what to do. Um, and he didn't have any answers for me. I felt completely alone in my experience. Um, it was overwhelming, and that's an understatement. Um, so I began scrolling through my social media, and synchronistically, what I found was somebody who I'd never met before post something. She is a therapist, and she talked about this grant for victims of crimes. It's called the California Victims of Crimes Board, VOCB, I believe it's called. And they grant you a minimum of 40 free sessions as compensation for a crime that you've suffered through, even if it has not been reported. And I immediately emailed her, and because the experience that was being recalled had been 10 years prior, when I was living up in Chico, and I didn't report it. I think that it's of some crazy percentage of people do not report sexual assault or the crimes that have been committed to them. And so this grant was like a life a life preserver. And I just reached out and I grabbed hold. And um, since then, I had messaged him back and I had said, I don't know what to do with this information. I need to process this. And that's all I said. And I think he said something like, I wasn't looking for a response. Um, I just wanted to uh, apologize. So to me, what that really said was that he needed to get it off of his back and put it put it onto me to deal with. So um, yeah, like a lot of anger started coming up over the course of 2020, especially after I broke up with the person that I was with shortly after. I think it was like a month or two after, maybe a couple months after I had received this message. Um, and then we went into lockdown, and I was alone in my house for the first time. I felt unsafe. Um, the flashbacks of that experience that I had put neatly up on a shelf um, were very much alive in my subconscious, in my consciousness. um, and I just went kept going to therapy every week, every single week, talking through it, doing EMDR, having more experiences come up in my awareness that, like, I was realizing, like, oh my god, there's so many times since that time where I have not consented to being treated a certain way and kept my mouth shut. And it was like realizing how much that trauma had impacted my world and my decision making. And I, I thought about how I had ended up getting married, and that that whole experience, if you've been following me, that it was extremely unhealthy, extremely um just very disempowering, abusive. I I I completely abandoned myself. Um I kind of just took very a back seat in my life since uh maybe even before maybe even before the sexual assault happened. Like, I but I feel like it was that traumatic experience was definitely a contributing factor to a lot of my life after that, being extremely disempowered and feeling like I did not have a voice. So um, I, a lot of, I felt like really disconnected, even though I was dealing with it and processing it on my own with my therapist, who is a godsend. I still felt like there were just all these new boundaries that I was like, I wanted to draw for myself, which is super empowering. Like, looking back now, I was not ready to receive that information. But going forward, it catalyzed a lot of growth for me, and allowed me to finally remove some of the deeper blocks that I wasn't really ready to deal with, that had been definitely standing in my way, um, subconsciously, in my relationships. And like, I don't mean just I don't mean just my relationships romantically. I also mean my family dynamics. Excuse me. So and my friendships too. Just not asserting myself. And I also, through the EMDR treatment, was able to feel like I might be jumping all over the place here, but I feel like all of these things are important to share as they come up. So through my EMDR therapy, I remember I remembered that night and driving home after that experience and repeating out loud to myself in my car, this didn't happen. This didn't happen. This didn't happen. If nobody knows, this didn't happen. And that was the last I ever thought about it. That was the last I ever spoke about it. And it really, it really got put away. And I think that I needed that in order to survive through that time in my life because it was too much. It was too it was too much of a blow to my self-worth and too much of a blow to my identity as an autonomous human being. Somebody taking advantage of that, um, taking advantage of me in that way was not something that I could could even wrap my head around. And so the blocking out of that was in itself a a favor. And I kind of think back on like what an incredible brain, what an incredible thing we have up here that helps us cope. And but also like those things that get locked away and we may not realize that they are potentially creating, pieces of the world around us. And for me, it definitely was, and I think my inability to draw boundaries clearly and think that I'm even worthy of drawing boundaries clearly. Um, it's all connected. So, so moving forward, working with my therapist, really helped with that. And uh, last January, so over a year since I got that message, I received another message from this person. Um, and it was simply a friend request on Facebook. And I had done so much work on myself since the last time I had even heard from this person that it felt like an important moment, just the friend request. Um, and I sat on that friend request and talked about it with my therapist for a couple weeks, just a couple weeks. And I decided to message that person back. And I ended up telling that person that I have since done so much work on myself and that what he did to me makes me extremely angry and that he is responsible for the harm he caused me. And I let him know the impact that it had on my life after the fact. And I also told him that I hold him responsible for that pain. And I said that I have no more space for him in my life and I will not be accepting a friend request or any messages going forward. And I said I hope he gets the healing that he needs. And I pressed send and I haven't heard from that person since. And I felt in that moment like what a gift it was for me to be able to face the, I mean, virtually, I guess, face the person that sexually assaulted me and tell them from an empowered place how I felt and to hold them responsible. Um, I had thought about not responding at all, but it felt important, and I almost felt like for all the other people that I know who have not had a chance to say that to their attacker, um, I felt like I was like doing it for us, like doing it for everybody who deserved the chance to say, fuck you. You did not deserve to treat me like that. And you're responsible for the harm that you caused, not me. And there's no shame that I feel around that. And in fact, you should be the one that's carrying that shame. So it was really, really empowering. And after I sent that message to him, I finally told my best friends and my one of my family members, and um and that felt really good too. And this is why I'm sharing this with all of you, is that whatever it is that you need to go through in terms of your own process, because I think once I told people this, I got I got a variety of different answers, and some of them were very understanding, and some of them were like, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" And I think that like this is yours. This is, when it comes to trauma, you don't have to tell anybody really. But I do feel like part of the healing process is to talk about it. And if the only person you're able to talk about it is a therapist, let that be it. But don't feel pressured to share before you're ready. Um, don't feel like you have to ever talk about it. I know that with all of these like movements and the Me Too movement, there can be pressure. Like, should I raise my hand too? And it's like, no, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to share any part of what it is that you've experienced. Like, this is yours. You have a right to privacy. You have a right to boundaries around your own life. So, sorry, the wind blew my door shut, but um I think that the most important lesson here for me was, even being in the work and the field of personal development and trauma, I myself uh, did not know how to process any of this. And so I just little by little, step by step, did what I could. And I didn't pressure myself. I tried not to. Um, and that has been a huge a huge thing that I've been going through. I think, the pressuring of yourself and the guilt tripping of yourself, and like the shaming yourself, like I should be sharing more. Like, those are all things that don't have a space in my world anymore. Like, those are all things that don't deserve space in your world either. Like, you hold the ultimate consent to what it is that you want your life to look like, and what you're expressing, and everything in it. So just know that you're not alone. Know that there are resources for you, and know that whatever point in your process you're at is the right place, and there's no rush. Um, and to just be really, really good to yourself. And also that anger is an amazing catalyst for growth. Um, it's something that I have been able to really harness in terms of owning owning anger as a powerful tool, owning anger as a valid feeling, um, one that really helps me to state my boundaries, and one that really helps me to take action on my needs. Um, so yeah, that's all I wanted to share, and I hope that, well, no, I don't hope anything. I wanted to share that. That's where I'm at. And if any of you need or want resources around some of the things that I mentioned, or, you know, just want to comment and reach out and have dialogue around this, um, please do. I want to make myself uh, a little bit of a life preserver for you, if I can be, when I can. And right now feels like a good time. So, sending love.